So thank you for joining us this afternoon. Again, as I said, we are recording this and we will share it with all junior parents. After this meeting, we'll put it on our YouTube high school channel, which now has recordings of a variety of presentations that we have done in the last few weeks. So the counselors are going to spend some time going over what we know up to this point. Of course, I'm sure you can understand that there's a lot of things we don't know and that things are changing literally day to day. So we will do our best to answer your questions, and then we'll also try to keep a record of any questions we can't answer, because it's possible that the answers to those questions will become clear at some point soon, we hope. So I think right now I'm going to, hold on one second, I'm going to hand it over to Erin, who's going to present. So let me do that, Erin.
Start.
Just one second. I have people. Okay, Erin, you should be all set.
Okay, want me to start?
Yeah, let me just get the, let me share my screen
Okay.
and then I can present. All right, Ann, go for it.
Okay, good afternoon. Thanks everybody for joining us. I want to spend a moment explaining where we have been and where we are at this moment regarding the junior workshops. We began our junior workshops 2 years ago with the class of 2019 because we wanted our juniors to have as much control as possible with those aspects of the post-high school planning process that they could control. So this is the third year that we are doing junior workshops, and each year we've tried to tweak our program a little bit so that we have made some really good additions. So as you know, in October we held our family meeting, and then in December we visited the juniors in their English classes and had them reconnect with Naviance and do a college search to hopefully create a list of prospective schools. In January and February, we met in our family meetings and selected courses for next year and talked about where we were in the process to date. In February, after the break, we began the workshops. First, we had a session about connecting interests and strengths and motivation to success in the future. And we asked our juniors to begin to complete their resume, which would be an important aspect of the process for them to then transfer to their common application. We then followed up with a worksheet on time management and balance, which is a connection to our affiliation with Challenge Success to help students balance their time and make plans that are in alignment with their abilities to meet these commitments. So now we're asking students at this point to complete the brag sheets and to ask their parents to ask you to complete your brag sheet as well. So the brag sheets are intended to spark some thoughts in our students that they can perhaps use to answer a question that they might be posed in an interview setting or on an application, perhaps to serve as a theme for their personal statement. And also for you parents to provide information about your student that the counselors might not know that we can use in that summary recommendation that we write for each of our students, and also perhaps that we could use as we speak to college admissions people. So going forward, juniors will be opening a common application account to review that actual application that they'll be completing after August 1st when the applications go live. And for the balance of the year then, after the workshops conclude, the juniors will be working on that personal statement with their counselor so that after completing that, they will be ready to fill in all the information on the college application, the common application, when the time comes. Well, in a normal year, these workshops would be accompanied by test preparation, visits to colleges, and by hard work of our juniors to gather the last good grades on their tests and so forth for quarter 4. They would be they would be doing all of this in conjunction with the workshops. But here we are now, frozen with events, postponements, cancellations, and uncertainty. So we understand that the uncertainty and the like that you feel, we feel it too. We're extremely sensitive to these issues, and multiple times during the day, though, we are receiving emails and announcements from the colleges, and the common theme that we see is that each college promises to be sensitive to these changes that are occurring this year, to the absence of regular classes, of activities, sports, and all normal events of the year having been canceled. So what we want to do this afternoon is to give you a summary of what we are hearing regarding from the colleges and the testing institutions. And as Anne has indicated, new information is coming every hour. We see emails coming up yesterday and today. The SAT and ACT made a statement about some changes. So this is ongoing, and we'll try to update you as we go through this process over the next few weeks. So first, Aaron's going to talk about our what we know from the colleges.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Bear with me. I'm letting people into the Zoom and changing slides. So just bear with me. You know, I guess I just wanted to start by this is a quote from a Forbes article that came out not too long ago, earlier this week, which is linked to the end of this presentation, which you can read when it goes out. You know, I was talking to a junior student and parents not too long ago, earlier this week, and you know, as we were talking about what's kind of coming down the pike in terms of summer and applying to college, it seemed like so much was unknown. This student, summer plans were all but ruined. They had intention of like international travel and teaching English to students abroad, and that was obviously put on hold or canceled. And so much is really just like up in the air. And at the same time, you know, thanks to, you know, the internet, there is a lot of information at our fingertips. And, you know, I think what our message is going to be when we meet with the juniors starting tomorrow is, and I was actually just sharing this with SFL, which had a meeting 30 minutes ago, it's going to take a little bit more energy and effort to do some of the things that that we took for granted, right? Like, I'm sure last week, many people had plans to visit a lot of schools, and that obviously didn't happen. But this week, and you'll see through the slides, there's a lot of ways to get that same information from universities. Just, you know, you're missing that kind of, you know, in-person, feet on the ground experience. But what I think we're asking, what we're going to ask the students and what we're asking you as parents is to help your child or children sort of like get through that uncomfortability, right? Like when I was speaking with the student, it was almost like there's nothing I can do. They were throwing their hands up, and it was kind of like too big of a mountain to climb to kind of problem solve and figure out how to make the best of the situation, which I think we're all trying to do. And so I think as parents, what we're hoping you could help your children do it is find a way to make the best of it. You'll see in a few slides, there's a lot of different ways to virtually be on campus, to virtually connect with admissions officers. And it's, you know, again, going to take a little bit more energy and effort, but it can still happen. And I think for those students that put that time in, those families that put that time in, come September, their experience applying to college is going to be a little bit easier, because you're going to have, you know, these questions where, you know, it's like, what about this institution makes you want to come here, that students are going to have to answer when they apply. The students that take these virtual tours, attend these virtual online sessions, they're going to be able to answer those questions. The students that didn't carve out time to go on the virtual tours, you know, it's going to be a little bit harder for them. So really help your student kind of get through that, like there's no point, this doesn't matter, and really just like lean into, making the most of what's available, online. As Anne mentioned, we're hearing from a lot of colleges, and I just pulled a few quotes from different emails we received from various institutions. Um, you know, just letting some people in. Um, as you can see, every school is saying the same thing, which is what Anne mentioned as well. Like, they get it, right? Like, their institutions are closed as well, for that matter, right? Like, nobody's expecting anybody to do anything during this time that's going to put themselves in danger, put others in danger. They understand that grades are going to look different for schools around the globe, for that matter. They understand activities are going to look different. They understand somebody's not going to be the spring captain of the baseball team in 2020. They get it, and they're not going to hold that against anybody. And they're also going to sort of, just take everything into context, right? And so nobody is being asked to do anything above and beyond during this period of time. And as you can see, and as Anne mentioned, all the colleges are this is like a consistent message from all of them. They get it. It's okay. And I think those two really like summary points is comforting to me as a counselor, that they're taking everything into consideration, given everything that's changing in the world. And is this Ellen's here?
Yes.
Ellen, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, great.
I can see it. I'm on a different computer, so I'm not, okay. Yeah. So just a little bit about what's going on with some of our standardized testing. This is the latest updates that we've gotten, which have been coming in, actually, even as late as, I think, yesterday, maybe. As many of you know, the AP exams were some of the first exams that we heard had been changed. The AP exams this spring will be 45-minute exams. Our students will be able to access the exams 30 minutes before the scheduled start time. They'll be able to use notes for these exams. The content will be modified, and the students are aware of this. The exam period will be May 11th to May 22nd, with makeup period from June 1st to June 5th. You'll be able to type and upload responses or write responses by hand, and submit a photo of your responses via cell phone. So that's some of the changes that have happened with the AP exams that students and teachers are aware of, and our teachers have been working hard to let the students in the AP classes know, what exactly content will be covered, and to be prepared for the AP exam in the iteration that they'll be experiencing it in May. In terms of the SAT, the June exam has been canceled. On April 15th, the College Board announced they're adding a September test date. That's the newest information that we just got in. And the registration for the fall dates will open in May. The subject tests will be available, and the SATs will be available in the regular dates, which which have always been the August 29th, October 3rd, November 7th, and December 5th dates. And those are all dates that are good for regular decision applications in next year's cycle. For early decision deadlines in the November 1st and November 15th deadline, colleges are usually very happy to wait for an October test date, even though it may be received, you know, around the same time as the application, and even often a November test date is fine. It may come slightly after the application, but if the student lets the admissions office know that it will be on the way, that is usually perfectly fine. Okay, and ACT test dates. As of April 16th, the June and July exams are scheduled to take place. That is the information we have. So that is on June 13th and July 18th. And the deadlines for registration are May 8th and June 19th, respectively. Typically, the July test is not given in New York State, but that could change. We have students who travel to New Jersey and Connecticut, and it hasn't been typically difficult for them, but they could be giving it in New York. We'll see. The regular test dates of September 12th, registration deadline of August 14th, October 24th, registration deadline of September 18th, and December 12th, registration deadline of November 6th. And this is all on the actstudent.org website, so you can check that out for more information or to sign up.
I see that there's a question from Susan about why the College Board can't administer the SAT with social distancing in the school building. Since the governor has closed school buildings, we cannot utilize them regardless of what the SAT might recommend. So that is part of the reason, I would say. And I think the SAT can't, they can't know which schools could handle which number of students necessarily, nor can we at this point, because we've never set it up with social distancing. So I think the risks are probably too high. And then again, as I said, the governor is not allowing students to occupy buildings. So for New York State, it's not even an option.
Just to add on to that, the College Board has said, and there's a link to the press release at the end of this that you can read at another time or go onto their site. They're, I think, working with higher ed institutions to open up more testing centers for the August and now September, October, November, December tests. So, you know, it's going to be a little bit of a, you know, rush to register. So I would, if your student wants to take the test, I would try to hop on to the website in May to register for whichever date works for you. But there should be more testing sites, of course, assuming that, you know, we're allowed to gather and things of that nature.
I see another question asking about whether we think early decision dates will be moved back, as well as regular admissions dates. I don't know if any of the counselors have specific information about this, but I'm not sure that we know at this point. They might. A lot of things are happening right now that have never happened before. So it is possible. I don't know if any of the counselors have any specifics about that.
There's been nothing definitive. However, most of the information that the colleges are sending out indicate that their virtual tours and information sessions and signups for the various activities will be adequate for students to make those decisions. So I'm guessing that they will stick to the deadlines.
Got it. And then another question is, based on what I just said about the school buildings being closed, does that mean there's no way to take the ACT? So at this point, we are only aware that schools will be closed through the end of April. We assume they're actually closed through May 15th based on what Governor Cuomo said today, but that still needs to be clarified. I think it's pretty clear that we're closed through May 15th, but at this point, we're not closed into June or July at this point. So right now, looks like the ACT could happen in June and July in New York, but that again could change at any point.
Yeah, and just one other, I guess, thing worth mentioning, and it's also, there's some articles about it. The College Board has said if in the fall where they're unable to test at a site, that they will have an online version of their test for students to take at home. It's kind of a la the AP exams, so it's somewhat of a similar structure, if you will, in terms of on a phone or on a device, and them tracking how you're working. And the ACT, it hasn't been released to the public, but it seems like the ACT is going to do the same thing in the event that we can't gather online at home testing, that is.
Yeah, because the ACT had also indicated that students could retake a section of the test, and that would have been an online administration. So they're getting ready for that as well. If need be, I'm sure they could apply it to the whole test.
All right, so moving on.
So, I mean, we're getting emails from colleges daily about, they understand how much our students are going through, all the different online tours they have, all the different, virtual info sessions they have that for students, the flexibility they understand, that they're prepared to exercise, and these are some highlighted schools that are popular choices among Bronxville students that are going test optional for 2021, and there are many more. But here's just some that we have come across. Amherst, Babson, BU, Case Western, Clarkson, Colgate, Davidson, Hamilton, Haverford, Indiana, Middlebury, Northeastern, Pomona, Rhodes, Santa Clara, Scripps, Swarthmore, TCU, Tulane, Tufts, all the UCs, Vassar, and Williams. And I'm sure we'll possibly hear more names. UPenn and Harvard no longer requiring subject tests. And then, the many schools actually of recent history that have always been test optional. So the schools understand that the students are going through a lot, and because of that, they've been flexible with the testing requirements. And I think this list may grow.
So there is a question, and I think this is related to the testing. As someone new to the college process, what are the usual school application submissions date windows for early versus regular?
So early, the typical deadline is November 1st would be the most popular, and then some of them have November 15th, but November 1st would be the most popular. The regular most popular deadline is probably January 1st. Some have the January 15th. But those are, I guess, our most common, most popular deadlines.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, so as Erin had mentioned, the college tours, in the past, we've always recommended that students visit, that families visit is by far the best thing that you can do to try to find, the schools that are good fits for you. Unfortunately, in these times, as mentioned, those are canceled and you can't physically get to campus. However, there are some great websites that we wanted to share with you. The first one there is called UVisit. And UVisit has over 600 colleges and universities that will provide 360-degree virtual tours. And for students, if they are, very technologically savvy and they have a virtual reality headset, you can even use that for a more enhanced version of the tour. I will tell you that if you have been on a college tour, you know that there is so much information that is covered by the tour guides when you take that tour. And the UVisit actually has tour guides. And just this morning I was on Dartmouth, and there were, I believe, 5 tour guides, and the students introduced themselves just as they would if you were physically there. They talk about their major, they talk about the school as a whole, from going through the history of the school to residential halls, internships, research opportunities, student organizations, sports and intramural activities. I mean, they cover everything that you would see if you were physically there. And I have to say, I'm really impressed. They do a great job. It is by far the second best thing that you can do in lieu of actually physically going to the school. So what I would recommend is that, you and your junior take time, whether it's this weekend, or during the week, and just sit down, plan it as you would if you were going on that college tour and info session, and sit down and go on to the UVisit website, type in the school that you're looking for, and take that tour. Many of the schools also are providing virtual information sessions with admissions officers. So you're having that meeting with them, and they will go through all of the questions and the information that you would hear if you were physically in that information session. So those things are really important to do right now. It's what you would be doing physically at this time of the year. And also the campus tours is a very similar website to the UVisit. Check that one out as well. And then the campus reel is a website where you will hear directly from students on campus, and they talk about their individual experience. And there's over 300 colleges that are listed on the campus reel, but with those 300 colleges, there are also 15,000 videos for those 300 colleges. So you can hear from many students from one college campus and really get insight into their experience, and that will help you to determine whether or not this is a college that you may be interested in applying to. What they do is they basically give you a day in the life of their experience, and it really gives perspective from the student view. All right, and then you'll see on the right-hand side for Naviance, there are a bunch of things that students need to do right now. I know that Mrs. Abaticola had mentioned completing that resume that we did start, and I think the majority of juniors do have that complete. For parents on this call, I recommend you asking your child about their resume and maybe taking a look at it, because as we've told the kids, sometimes you may leave off a community service activity. Maybe it was a one-day activity or a weekend activity that they did in 9th grade. All of those things need to go on the resume. So between community service, athletics, a part-time job, things like that, everything from 9th grade until now, we want to make sure is on that resume. And then also, as Mrs. Abaticola mentioned, the brag sheet for students. And we gave you the information to link to that brag sheet. So for the students, it's a great opportunity for them to, kind of just start thinking about all the great things about themselves. They're going to share that with the counselors. It helps us to write that great letter of recommendation for them, but it also helps them as they start thinking about their college essays, because writing about oneself tends to be the most difficult thing for students to do. And so this is a great activity to get them started. They may also use some of those questions and answers if they do have scholarships that they apply for or any interviews that they may have next year as they go through the college process. And then the parent brag sheet, which is also on Naviance. I will tell you that in the past, sometimes I have used a quote here or there because you guys give us some really great information about your child that we just couldn't put any better. And so sometimes we will, grab a phrase or a quote and put that into our letter of rec as well. And then the last thing that we're asking students to do is to add the list of the colleges that they're thinking about. There is actually a list in Naviance. It's called exactly that, Colleges I'm Thinking About list. And as the counselors, as we go through these next few months, if they are unsure about some of their schools, really need some suggestions, we can absolutely help with that. But the UVisit and those other websites that we gave you are a great way to start right now. And I would, log into them in the next few days, take a look. They are really, really helpful. And then the last thing that we have on the page here is other resources. So there's a college comparison worksheet that the University of Dayton had provided that we thought was really useful. So you can check that out. And as you're looking at schools and trying to compare the different factors of each, that's a great little worksheet that you can utilize. You can also share with us as you're going through the process, and we can, help you to navigate certain factors that are most important to you. But I would, as mentioned, definitely get going on doing some of those virtual tours and the information sessions. The other thing I didn't mention is Instagram. A lot of the colleges are on Instagram, And so students can use the Instagram pages, to get more information as well. So if they see that there's an Instagram page that a school has that they're interested in, we definitely recommend also following them on Instagram for more.
And Andrea, I do have a question over here on the websites, and please make sure you're muted if you're not speaking. On the websites, do you need to register so the college is able to track who demonstrated interest?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're going to just ask you for your email. That's the only registration that you need to do. So I think you just type in your name and your email address. And then if it's a school, let's say that after you go through the tour, you decide that this is not a school for me, you can unsubscribe to that school. So yes, there is, before you look at the video, you do have to type in your name and your email address.
And would international universities also be included in UVisit?
I believe they're all domestic. Aaron, Ellen, and do you guys know if there's any I don't believe I saw any international schools on there, but I could be mistaken.
Okay, no problem. We have a couple of other questions that are related maybe to other pieces of the
May I just
presentation.
add something about registration?
Yep.
Regarding, we talk about the concept of demonstrated interest. And as Andrea said, many of the information sessions require that you register. So this is really the way that our students and parents can continue that demonstrated interest concept. Many colleges do track the number of times that a student connects with the college, connects with an admissions representative, or expresses interest in the school. And colleges usually indicate somewhere in their information on their website how they regard demonstrated interest. So by all means, besides registering, if after viewing an information session you have a question or a comment, try to locate the regional representative in admissions and establish some connection with that representative.
Great. Another question was back to the test optional. Do you have advice on whether, quote, test optional means to skip the tests or to take the tests?
Yeah, I saw that question. I mean, I would answer that the same way that I would we answer our questions about test optional colleges as we always had throughout history. If your child had been preparing for the test all the way along and was doing very well and wanted to take the test, and this time they were actually frustrated that they weren't going to be able to take it, then they had the opportunity to in the fall and really wanted to, and upon taking it did well, then they could submit that score, and it would be something that was helpful, and their score was higher than the in the high end of the average score of that particular college that they were applying to. And they could look, it might be a matter of certain colleges they would submit it to, and certain colleges they might not submit it to, depending on the score in relation to the average score at each particular school. But if it was something that the student hadn't gotten to studying for, and it had been a source of tremendous stress, then definitely do not overwhelm yourself. We all have a lot on our plates right now. I wouldn't push a student at this time, and I don't think that's the college's expectation to they're not going to be overly impressed if a student pushes themselves to do that. And I think it would put the student in a bad place. We don't want I don't think anyone wants any students to be overwhelmed or stressed or feel that way. But but if a student for some reason wants to take it, or testing is a strong suit, it could be something that could be, and they want to try it, they can certainly try it and submit it if they think they would do well.
And always, individual questions
Yeah,
regarding
I
the
think
score,
it's such a highly
your
individual
counselor.
situation.
Yeah.
That's true. So certainly, it's hard to make a blanket statement about it. So, us in the counseling office, we know your kids. So please, reach out and ask us about your child individually, and we'll talk through the scenario and each college on the list and decide what would make the most sense.
Yeah,
Sure.
I recently attended a webinar of one of the most highly competitive schools, and the admissions person indicated, just as you mentioned earlier, Ellen, if you have a strong score and it's within the range of that school in a test, and the school is test optional, it's advisable to submit that score. Even if you had an intention of taking the test again and getting a little higher score, but if you're within the range of the school's admitted student, it's always advisable to submit that score. That was what the admissions rep had indicated.
One other question, that AP scores, someone heard that AP scores can now be submitted in lieu of SAT subject tests. Has that been heard by any of you?
I mean, I know I've heard Georgetown does that, but I think NYU maybe too, but it's not like a sweeping thing that I've heard over so many. I don't know, maybe some of the other counselors have heard.
No, I agree. It isn't. Some schools have indicated that they will look at them in lieu of. But we usually advise students, if you have strong scores on the AP, to enter those on your common application, which is optional. It's not something that you must do. But if you have strong scores, it's always good to enter them on your application, so that as the admissions people reviewing it look at the application, they can see that you have done very well on the AP.
Great. And there was only one other question I believe we haven't gotten to, which had to do with when the College Board states the fall SAT registration will be available in May, does that include the August test date?
I would assume so, because we would be within the deadline for the August test as well.
Well, yeah, that's the first test. That will be the first test date that's available.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I think we're still within the range, yeah.
And then look, actually, I see one more. Will test optional schools ask whether you have taken the test?
No.
Absolutely not.
If you're test optional, they will not ask that question. It's your choice whether you want to submit a score or not. They
Great,
don't
thanks.
hold it against you, yeah. Okay, so closing thoughts. The Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at Olin has a very nice quote: to treat this time as a gift. Think of what you can do in this time. There are so many things that we've lost, but we can be creative and find so many things that we can do. For example, spending time with the family. I know I mentioned this at another of our presentations. Families have established a family dinner, family movie night, Scrabble. That has really been a source of enjoyment among members of a family. Read a book that you would like to look at. Pull out that guitar or learn to draw, and there are many online tutorials. Help out in the family. Go out for a run. Clock yourself if you've never checked your time. Try to get a little faster. And then another one that we have also mentioned is write letters to loved ones or residents of a local nursing home, which are so well received and loved. And the whole idea of do what you can. I think of Casey Neistat, the YouTuber whose video we show to our juniors at the beginning of the workshops. His theme is do what you can't, and that's a theme that was adopted by Samsung that you'll see on the Samsung advertisement. So there's so many things that if we're creative and we sit and say, what can we do? We can find so many things, and these might be a source of explanation to the colleges as to how you spent your time, despite the fact that you lost a lot, you will have gained a lot. And I think that's really important. And to have a positive perspective on these times. How can we use our time wisely, and what can we accomplish? The last slide then shows some references of articles that you can read. And as has already been said, and Aaron said, there are articles that are coming out daily in the various publications, in addition to the announcements from the organizations, from the colleges and the testing institutions. And certainly we'll try to update those over the next few weeks. We'll be doing this presentation for our juniors in the junior workshop sessions beginning tomorrow. We have the lunchtime session meeting with us at 11:15, and then subsequent sessions will take place at the same time that their class would meet, 12 or 2:15, as the invite to Zoom will indicate. So I want to thank everyone for participating. If there are any additional questions, we would invite those now. But I would like to say in closing that please remember that this is a joint effort. We are in this together. We would like to be meeting as many times as you would like. Please email us, contact us to set up a Zoom family meeting or an individual meeting if you prefer, so that we can, going forward, discuss this together. We'll be contacting each of our juniors at the conclusion of this workshop, and we want to have this as a running conversation. How are things going? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Please contact us with your questions and concerns. We really invite those, and we want to support our students and our families as best we can. We will get through this. We will survive, and we will do a good job at it. And we support that for each and every one of you.
I did want to mention today I was in the English department meeting, and just a reminder that our 11th grade English teachers, Mr. Cross and Mr. D'Alessandro, do spend a good part of the fourth quarter working on students' college essays with them. And I think part of what their focus is this year is to use that as an opportunity to a certain extent, and maybe not as their final draft of their essay, but to sort of process how this has impacted juniors in particular and how they're feeling about, the college process, because the unit itself asks them to really think about themselves and share themselves in the essay. But again, I think by the end of that unit, students should have a really strong draft of the essay, which, as Anna Vaticola often states, relieves some of the pressure as they enter the fall. So at this point, if you have a question, you can either raise your hand or you can type it in the Zoom chat. We have been able to keep up with the questions that have arisen so far. If your question is very specific, please reach out to your child's counselor. Absolutely do that. And they are there for you and your child in the midst of this. And, we will be sharing this presentation for anyone who couldn't attend or anyone who'd like to review it specifically with their child. And again, the counselors will go through it in the junior workshop. Any questions? A lot of thank yous in the chat, so we appreciate it. And if you need to go, please do so.
Thank
No
you
problem.
for participating.
Of course, if we hear any more information, we will share it. Oh, that's hands clapping, not a raised hand. Great. So it looks like at this point we don't have any questions. So I think we're gonna close the meeting. And again, anything that comes up or that comes to mind after this, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Right. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and try to host you back.
Okay.